also to introduce you, and I would like to ask our panelists to come on stage. First is Mr. Insinyur Ananto Kusuma Seta, Master of Science, PhD. Please, Pak, come on stage. So, Dr. Ananto is currently holding the title of Senior Advisor to Ministry for Innovation and Competitiveness at the Ministry of Education and Culture. Our second panelist is Bu Niken Widya Studi. Please come on stage, Bu. Please give her a warm applause. She is now serving as the Director General of Public Information and Communication at the Ministry of Communication and Information. She was the President Director of Radio Republik Indonesia from 2010 until 2015. Third, we have Pak Ricky Joseph Pesik from Barcraft. Pak Ricky Joseph Pesik is currently the Vice Chairman of Indonesia Creative Economy Agency, or Badan Ekonomi Kreatif Indonesia. He has strong background in the creative industry, especially in the advertising industry. Okay, and then fourth, Pak Dr. Ilham A. Habibi. Pak Ilham Habibi is currently the chairman of the National ICT Council. He is also the founder of Berkarya Indonesia, with its tagline, Membudayakan Teknologi. It is a nationwide movement to change perspective from being consumer-minded into productive-minded. And then, also the panelists from Intel Indonesia. Please welcome Bu Swita Kurana. Please come on stage, Bu. Bu Swita Kurana is the head of corporate affairs group in Indonesia. She promotes youth empowerment initiatives and has been supporting various country governments frame futuristic innovation and education policies. And also, among us, we have industry experts. And I'd like to introduce you to Pak Hari Nugraha. Pak Hari, please stand up, Pak. Pak Hari is the country manager of Intel Indonesia, and Pak Hari manages Intel Indonesia operation in Indonesia, covering sales, marketing, business development, and government policy. And also we have our colleague from International Development Agency, Mr. Thomas J. Cody. Yes, Mr. Thomas J. Cody from USAID. Thomas J. Cody is the Senior Alliance Builder of US Agency for International Development in Jakarta, in Indonesia. He is responsible for sourcing and arranging private sector participation, co-design and co-finance in public-private partnership that supports USAID development programming in Indonesia. And also, we have Bu Petra Bodrogini. Yes, Bu Petra is the educational specialist at World Bank. Bu Dr. Doli Mariati is the senior advisor for GIZ. She is dealing with policy and legal framework on technical and vocational education and training, TVET, in Indonesia. And GIC is German Development Cooperation Agency, right? Okay, and last but not least, Bapak Indra Utoyo. Pak Indra Utoyo, Pak Indra Utoyo is the Director of Innovation and Strategic Portfolio since 2012, which previously was Director of IT Solutions and Supply in Telkom Indonesia from 2007 to 2012, and Senior General Manager of Information System Center, Telkom 2005 to 2006-2007. Okay, so without further ado, let me ask first to Bu Swita. So how do you see, in terms of the environment and also what we can do more about innovation in Indonesia?
Thanks so much, Tiny. And I'm going to step down because, like you said, it's a fireside chat, not essentially a panel. I also would like to extend a very warm welcome to all our friends here who we did not really call out for, but thank you so much for joining us today. And, well, post-lunch sessions are usually tricky, so I have a short presentation. I promise not to take more than 5 minutes, just to kind of update you on what have we been doing together in this space. And when I say together, I'm talking about the government, where we've had representations from almost 9 ministries, the donor organizations, many of whom are already present here as the experts, and corporates like Intel. The focus across the last 2 roundtables on actually coming up with draft recommendations for the innovation decree has been on youth empowerment. How do we really make sure the youth of Indonesia are empowered to match to the new era requirements? So in the last roundtable, Ananto had spoken about the 4th industrial revolution, and that's going to be our starting point for discussion this time as well. Just to very briefly take you through what this means. In 1760s, the countries which really scored well economically are the countries who believed in the power of steam and power itself. A decade later, the buzzwords were electricity and mass production. Another decade later, it came to digital computing because that was the era of mainframes, personal computers, etc., etc. But what is happening today is that the acute merger happening in the physical, digital, and biological spaces. A good proof point is the number of devices and the IoT powered devices which we are surrounded with today. How many of you are wearing Fitbits? Or how many of you track apps just to make sure that your day goes well? That's all an example of how the cyber-physical systems are impacting us in our day-to-day lives without us even realizing it. At the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab has spoken enough about it. So what we're going to do today is to actually use the next 1.5 hours to figure out how does it impact each one of us. We all know that the world is becoming hyper-connected. Indonesia enjoys a young demographic advantage, rise of smart machines. So machine-to-machine learning, machine proficiency is something which is impacting each one of us as we go ahead with our lives. There is enough smart urbanization, smart cities we talk about. So to speak, we are actually today surrounded with intelligent machines which are getting smarter day by day. Trillions of sensors who behave and operate for our well-being without us even realizing it. And a huge amount of data which somewhere down the line is being collected and we don't know what to do with it. If that's the future, then the war is on for global talent. Talent which can actually work in this space. Every nation has to be competitive, and national competitiveness stands across 3 pillars. How do we really develop innovative businesses? Those who attended the morning session at 8 o'clock saw the keynote being talked about innovating innovation. And if we want to talk about innovative businesses, what we really need to have is the best equipped workforce. People who can work effectively in that environment. And to do that, the most critical idea is to cultivate those skills which are required for a knowledge economy to be successful. There is a study from UNESCO which says every US dollar invested in employability skills generates 10 to 15x of what we really spend on it today. To become competitive as an economy in future, what is also extremely critical is what is fueling this competition. Which are the countries and how are they focusing on new technologies, new eras, the entire piece of technology creation per se, and what are they doing with it? So whether you talk about IoT, you talk about privacy, security, big data, artificial intelligence, they're not unknown terms to everybody. Everybody knows about them. But fact is, are our children, or is the new generation, is the youth of Indonesia really geared up to work efficiently in a world which is going to be revolving around this? So if this is what our future is, gesture control, facial recognition, perceptual computing is again not a new term. There are multiple devices today which allow for perceptual computing. Self-driving cars, we've all seen that happen and how they're growing, how the acceptance for self-driving cars is increasing. Silicon, biology, advances in prosthetics becoming more and more technologically advanced. So there's a merger happening between the biology side of it and the technology side of it. What and where does this lead us? This leads us to new possibilities for local innovation. Local innovation which can really create a lot of value for the economy. Jobs of the future, well, they have not been created and we don't know about them because we never knew these jobs existed 10 years ago. As a matter of fact, they do today. So we don't know what jobs are going to come ahead 10 years from now. But what we do know is what are the skills which would be required to manage those jobs. So effectively, we talk about the skills, and that's what we spent some time in the last roundtable also discussing. If you're talking about rise of smart machines and systems, you're talking about a skill, basic skill of computational thinking at an early age group. If you're talking about new media ecology, you're also talking about cross-cultural competencies. This is an entire white paper by the Future Work Skills 2020. How many of you have been using that term 21st century skills? Okay. From 21st century skills, the movement today, which the Future Work Skills defines at the Phoenix Research Institute, are the new wave skills, which would actually aid employability going ahead. Back to the question which we want to really discuss today. How are we going to prepare tomorrow's workforce? How are we going to ensure that the youth in Indonesia will be equipped to work in this environment? And also, I mean, I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but just to tell you, by youth, we're talking about Gen Z, which is from 95 to 2012 or current, which have grown up streaming music, managing multi-touch apps, video sharing, having a 5-screen interaction. So these are the youth who we're talking about today. How do we teach them? How do we get them to learn effectively? Very quickly, I want to touch upon 2 examples. Each of you has got the draft white paper. These 2 examples are covered there as well. One is the Creative Economy Korea model, and the second is the Digital India Tinkering Labs model. So Creative Economy Korea model talks about learning computational skills in children who are possibly just 10 years old or 9 years old. But one of my colleagues just came back from Korea, and he saw them flying drones to manage micro-agriculture, to solve the problem of food, not just to learn technology. Digital India, the government is providing for tinkering laboratories in schools so that people have access to infrastructure and they can actually move from just thinking to creating, from just being creative enough to think of an idea to an actual prototype. 5 key recommendations over the previous 2 workshops where we could solicit your inputs today. One is, how do we invest in future skills? How do we make sure that the youth learn for tomorrow? How do we create easy access to digital infrastructure? Because children are born creative. All they need is a lab or a laboratory. It can be in the garage, it can be in the schools, it can be anywhere to get their hands on to stuff to tinker with, to make. How do we build a network of specialized mentors? As and when they need help with specialized technologies, they should have access to the mentors. Initiate state-sponsored platforms. Many of you over lunch and some other discussions we've been having have been talking about competitions, have been talking about innovation festivals. I know runs that entire innovation festival. But how do we make sure that we encourage innovation in the early age group so more and more children, more and more youth actually get to participate? And build programs and measures to put innovation at the heart of economic development. All these 5 are elaborated in the case study which is there. Thank you, and I'll now hand over this back to Danny so that he can solicit a comment.